Yeah, I mean, it's truly staggering. And honestly, I wasn't prepared for all the sights, and I imagine that's what a lot of the relief crews are going through. Indeed, many of the international crews actually told us that, saying that they weren't expecting this, because when you walk through the centre of Derna, what strikes you is how incredible amount of water there must have been, because you can tell this by how high the buildings have been destroyed, where the trees have ended up, where the vehicles have ended up. So a car being transported, 3 or 4 stories high and ending up in someone's front room, that's extraordinary. Seeing the bottom of the valley and where the water started, and seeing the trees up on top of a 15-story apartment block is just extraordinary. There are cars and vehicles all over the place, top upside down, up against walls, piled all together, out at sea, or the coastline is packed with cars in a sort of haphazard fashion, as though some sort of giant crazy toddler has just gone whack with the middle of the city centre and smashed it all. And that's what's happening in the city centre. Also, the crews that are landing have come. It's been difficult. I think that seems to be the pervading problem, that it's been difficult to get in to this part of Libya, and they've come in small numbers and quite late. It's nearly a week on now, and so there is a limit to what they can do. And there are lots of people in utter shock. The whole of the centre of Derna can't quite cope with what's happened. Entire apartment blocks absolutely wiped away. Can I show you just behind me, if you bear with me? That whole of that centre, which is just a flat, sandy bottom, that used to be packed, the most highly populated part of a very highly populated city, and that was wall to wall, like you can see behind it, the buildings are all up against each other and all jostling very, very close, little alleyways. That was what that empty patch of land was, packed full of buildings, apartment blocks, all sorts. If you look out at the sea, I don't know whether you can tell that there's a colour difference. That's how far the black, the darker colour is how far all the mud and the debris has infected the normally blue aqua colour Mediterranean. You can see Italian warships just stationed off who have been there for the past few days. I'm not exactly sure how long they've been there, but they've been there helping in the recovery of bodies which are still being washed up at shore and floating about in the ocean. But there is still hope, because we responded to a call late last night when we saw all the, late yesterday afternoon, when we saw all the relief crews running, and they got a call that they'd heard a voice of a woman underneath the rubble. And I must admit, we stayed and watched it. No one there could believe anyone had survived it, because this amount of force from one body of water, when whole buildings can't resist it, it's very difficult to imagine actual humans can resist it. Well, this morning we heard that that young woman was rescued. So there is still, like in all of these cases, they throw up these miracle survival people who have managed to somehow, against all the odds, come through it all. And we'll be hoping to bring you more of that later on.
Yeah, it's good to hear those tiny stories of hope, Alex. And the pictures you've been showing us really are quite staggering. You talked about how difficult it is for teams to get in. What about aid? Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a bit busier, and it's exponentially getting a tiny bit busier with more people going in. But we're talking about what appears to me anyway, from a non-expert point of view, as far as relief aid goes, it appears to be a huge scale, a huge number of people who have either lost their homes, and that is an estimated 300,000, or who have lost relatives. There are more than 10,000 people unaccounted for. So we must presume that they're missing, maybe under rubble, or they've perished in this disaster. And then there's the ones that have actually died on top of it. So there's a huge amount of challenges facing this city in eastern Libya, which is in a country which has enormous challenges, not least because there are two competing, opposing governments, authorities in the east and west, not least because of the history which dates back to the Arab Spring back in 2011 when a NATO-led campaign, military campaign, ousted the dictator, and all that, the problems that ensued from that, not least because the country was awash with weapons since and had a civil war that followed, and, is reduced to, in some areas, extreme poverty. There are lots and lots of challenges here, and now they have a massive disaster, which by any means of measurement would challenge a really rich, fully functioning country, and there are not many of those around the world, let's face it. So the challenges here are enormous. The aid is beginning to come in. We're hearing about World Health Organization supplies arriving. We're hearing more and more crews come, relief crews coming. They have told us that there are more of them coming, but they are small compared to the problem, really small and sparse on the ground, and it's difficult to see a lot of the locals telling us, a lot of the Libyans doing it for themselves, travelling from Misrata, from Tripoli, from all parts of the country to help in what is a massive challenge on the ground, and they feel once again that they're not really getting the sort of response that, for instance, those sufferers in the Turkey earthquake got not so long ago. We saw that, and Sky was on the ground there in large numbers covering what went on there. And we saw a massive international response to that. I don't feel, seriously, that has happened quite yet.
Also very sad. Alex in Derna, thank you.